So in this module, we're going to look at how to work with the different types of dependencies in Rider. So NuGet packages, project references, type dependencies, and also tooling to help visualize this in Rider. And in this first video, we're going to focus on NuGet. If you've used .NET before, you've probably heard of NuGet. If you've not, basically it's .NET's package manager. So similar to NPM and Maven and that kind of thing. So let's have a look at the Rider UI for that. So down here, there's a pane Alt 7. As usual, ... if it's not pinned to the side, or you can press Alt 7. So let's do Alt 7 and this appears. Let me just drag it up a bit. So this is the NuGet tool window or pane, and we can see that there's a few different tabs along the top. And it's this tab that you'll spend most of your time in if you're adding a NuGet package or updating NuGet packages. So you can search for new packages here. You've got various filters along the side, so we can say we're dealing with the scope of the entire solution. You can choose what feed. So if you've got your own private NuGet feed, maybe on Azure DevOps or somewhere, then you can filter it here. You've got an option saying pre-release. So this list would then include pre-release versions, and you can install the pre-release versions. We can see there's different groupings. So these are install packages. And note that if a package is out of date, it will show on the right-hand side the new version. So we can see this, for example, is 17.11.1, but the latest is 17.12.0. We've also got this block, which shows, so implicitly installed packages refers to transitive dependencies. So if you're depending on a package that depends on other packages, that's what these are. For example, I'm depending on XUnit, which in turn depends on these three. Even though that's out of date, I can't click on this and then say update the version. There's no option to update it because it's indirect, it's transitive. Scrolling down a bit, there's other sections like available packages. So when you start to search for something, say like, let's go with Fluent Validations. So we can see that's not installed, but it's available, and this is the available list. And then you can click and say, just install on the right-hand side here. Speaking of this right-hand side, when you select a package, you get the details here, including information about the package, like number of downloads, publish date, the author, various links, and frameworks and dependencies as well. You can choose your project here and click the plus if you want to install it into that project. You can also at the top change to a different version or choose a different NuGet source. So if I X that and move across to the next pane, sources. So this lists out the feed sources. So we can see we've got like the NuGet source. If you've got your own private feed like Azure DevOps or somewhere, then that will be listed here. We can see on the left things like the NuGet configs. So this is my NuGet config, but there might be one in your project, so that's source controlled, which I'd probably recommend if you're using a third-party private NuGet feed, so a new developer would automatically have that set up. But you can see how it's kind of layering them together, and we can use this pane to investigate where our packages are coming from. The next tab, folders, basically shows where the NuGet related folders are on your machine. So things like the NuGet cache, the downloaded packages, there's the package cache where the cache folder is, and various other related folders. The last one, log. Now this can be really useful if something doesn't quite work right. And an example might be if you've got a private feed and you've got an authentication error, so it's not authenticating. Go into this log, might show you more information. And quite often, an example being Azure DevOps might be that it requires an OAuth authentication flow. So it will give you a link and you've got to go to it and enter a code or something like that. So sometimes it just stops working, and go into this. You can actually see the hyperlink in here and the one-time passcode in here as well that you can then do that. Speaking of private feeds, it's worth pointing out that if you go to the settings, so Control-Alt-S, and build execution, deployment, NuGet, if you go down to the bottom, there is this credentials provider setting. And if you are using a private feed and you're having trouble, then try changing this to NuGet.NET CLI plugins instead of Rider integrated. Or this one, which is hidden at the moment, the ending, but it's basically NuGet.NET CLI plugins, then Rider integrated. So it's like a fallback to Rider integrated. So try switching to one of those if you have trouble with Rider integrated authentication. Whilst we're in the settings pane, if you type password up here and system settings passwords, we can see that there's this option for how it saves passwords. And you can see it uses KeePass. So that's where it stores your private feed authentication details. Okay, let's close that. And we've gone through all the tabs now. And I've already said that Alt-7 shows this tool window, this pane, and doing it again toggles so I can get rid of that. Another really useful NuGet shortcut is Shift Alt and N, and that brings up the NuGet quick list. So you can quickly do restore, force restore, you can manage your NuGet packages, and there's all these options here. So these go directly to the tabs we've just discussed. So if I go to sources, it opens that straight up. So going back to packaging, I've already shown finding a package. So Fluent assertions, I can click here and then let's collapse this. I can just click on the plus icon. We can see that Fluent assertions, I did Fluent validations before, but Fluent assertions is already installed. So if I want to remove it, I can click on this bin icon here. But I can see at a glance that it's installed in the test project, but it's not installed in the non-test project, the main class library. The package, if I just X that, the package we saw that was out of date. So we saw it's in the installed section, but it's got a new version here. I can then click on that and I can do, you can see on the right, this icon here, I could upgrade that. Another option on the left toolbar is that I can click this to upgrade all the packages in the solution. And I can do a NuGet restore here, I can refresh, and I can go to those settings we saw earlier. It's worth noting if I just collapse that a bit, and if I go to one of my projects and press F4, in fact, let's do the test one instead, because that's got package references. You can also get IntelliSense here. So if I just do a new package reference and say include, then you get autocomplete. So let's just pick one at random. I can say version equals, and it also looks up the version. So you get that IntelliSense, you can see your versions. So if you prefer to just edit in the CS Proj, you can do that as well. So as you can see, doing this in Rider, installing and upgrading packages is quite easy. What about creating your own? So we've got this shopping cart lib that we created before. You can just right click on one and go to advanced build actions. And we've got the build and rebuild and clean and things. You've also got pack. So that, clicking that will generate a NuGet package. But that's a manual action. Another thing you can do is right click on your project and go to properties. In here, we've got NuGet. So you can click generate a NuGet package during build. You can populate this. So let's just say title is shopping cart library and then OK. And then if you go to Git, then we can see it's made a change and it's added information to our CS Proj. Generate package on build is true, and it's given it the title. If you'd filled in any of the other properties, then that would also be here. The last thing I want to show in this video is if we go to, let's go to our tests and let's just create a new test. What I'm showing here isn't related to tests, it's just somewhere to put some code. So if I did, let's, as an example, do that. Now, HTTP test, I happen to know, is a class that's in a NuGet package called Flurl, which is an HTTP client library, which I find quite good. But at the moment, I've not got that referenced. So here I can actually do Alt and Enter, and you'll see there's this option here, find this type on NuGet.org. If I click on that, it then opens this, and you can see this T : syntax. So that's found it by type, and we can see I can click on there, and I can just add it straight away. So if you know the type, so you've typed it in code, but you haven't referenced it, that's a really quick way to add the NuGet package. This T syntax, obviously you can type manually in here. You can also do N instead of T for searching for a namespace. So those are the main things you need to know about NuGet and installing and upgrading packages. In the next video, we're going to look at Solution Explorer and how we can use like dependencies to look at our project dependencies, and also how we can set project references. So see you in the next video. So just a quick video this time, we're going to look at project dependencies, and we're also going to look at this expandable project dependencies section. So first of all, we've seen the solution so far, and we know that the test project depends on the class library. We've already done this, but let's remove that dependency. So I'm just going to delete. So I pressed F4 here. I'm going to delete this. So that's deleted the dependency. And we can see we've got compile errors now because it's gone red. So now if I want to make this depend on this, I can right click on dependencies and say reference. And we have a list of projects, and I obviously can't reference itself. So this is grayed out. So I can click this one because that's the only other project in there. So if we click add, then we can see that's now re-added that back in again. So that's fairly simple. So let's have a look at this dependencies section now. If I expand this, we've got imports. So this is all about the props and target files. So I can drill in on these, and going into props and target files is out of scope of this talk. But basically all the properties that get imported are like here, and then the actual targets, so the tasks and things, are here. So these all relate to the build, like MS Build and that kind of thing. You will very rarely need to dig into this, but it's there just so you're aware. If we then move down to here, so this project targets .NET 9. So if I expand this, we can see all of these things. So assemblies. So these are all the assemblies it depends on. And you can see it says implicit. And these implicit assemblies are even including DLLs like from NuGet packages that we're using, as well as system assemblies as well. And then moving down to projects, we can see the project reference. And then moving down to analyzers, then this is really cool. We can expand these and it actually tells you the description of each of the rules. If you right click, you can configure the inspection severity, which we've spoken about before, not from this view, but we've spoken about it before from the code view. You can also open a help link, which will open the description of this in the browser. And then we have packages, which are our NuGet packages. So going back to F4 here, we can see those are listed here. You'll see that Fluent Assertions has a chevron thing, so we can expand it. So that's when the NuGet package has a DLL in there. So you can right click and you can view it in the Assembly Explorer if you want to disassemble it or view its symbols. You may be thinking, well, how come XUnit doesn't have DLLs in? Surely that's got DLLs in. The reason is that this NuGet package actually doesn't have DLLs in, but it has transitive dependencies to other DLLs like xunit.core. And in fact, if we right click and open in Explorer, and then we go into here, so new pack, so the NuGet package, a NuGet package is actually just a zip file. So if I double click to open it in 7-zip, which is what I've got a new pack associated with, then we can actually see if I drill into these, there's nothing there. Content, no DLLs, rels. But if I open the new spec file, I think this isn't a zip file or a new pack, so I can't drag it onto Rider. But if I close this and go back to that file explorer, there should also be a new spec next to it. So that's basically what's in the zip file. Let's drag that onto Rider so we can view that. We can see here we've got the dependencies in here. So basically that's a package without DLLs, but it's got an assembly in. If it had DLLs, it would be expandable like this. The last thing I want to show in this video, which is very useful, if you right click on a dependency, you've got find dependent code. If I click on that, that's opened my code that is using that library that depends on that NuGet package. So I can double click and go straight to it. So that's really useful for finding what code is using this dependency. Or I can click on something else. I could click on a project reference. And then that's showing me in my tests what's using this project reference. So as you can see, there's lots of useful information here to help you discover your dependencies. In the next video, we're going to take it further and look at, for example, if we right click on something, we can click on diagrams and we've got various dependency diagrams. So we're going to drill into that in the next video.